the national anthem before the Eagles game last night, the same way he did last season. But this time, his teammate Chris Long stood next to him with his arm on his shoulder. Long grew up in Charlottesville and went to school at the University of Virginia. Let's take a listen to Long after the game.
It was a hard week for everybody. I think it's not just a hard week for somebody being from Charlottesville. It's a tough week for America. And really, I've heard a lot of people say, you need white athletes to get involved in the anthem protest. I've said before I'll never kneel for an anthem because the flag means something different to everybody in this country. But I support my peers, and if you don't see why you need allies for people that are fighting for equality right now, I don't think you'll ever see it. My thing is this, Malcolm's a leader, and I'm here to show support as a white athlete.
Shannon, you said it would make a difference if white players join the protest. Will more white players join after seeing Chris Long's support last night?
I think so. Sometimes when the wagon is on the top of the hill, all it needs is one push. And maybe Chris Long is that white athlete that got this started and others will join. Because he said something very interesting, and I don't think we got that in. It says sports is like a brotherhood. He said, I wish the rest of the world could be on a team. I know it sounds kind of cliche-ish, but I really being exposed to others, different cultures, different ways of life, and way to look at different things. Mm-hmm. For a moment, now let's give you a backdrop of Chris Long. He's very socially active. He's very socially conscious. He was one of the first players, be it white or black, that said he would not be attending the White House if the Patriots were to go. Mm-hmm. He said he wouldn't go. He has a foundation called Water Boys, where they go in East Africa and African countries and dig for wells and give the villagers fresh well water. So to have a backdrop, he has a very good understanding of his social responsibility as an American, and he wants to be thought of as more than a professional athlete. Skip, for Chris, the cliche or the adage, this was brought to his living room. Well, it really was. He's from Charlottesville. He went to school in Charlottesville, and he had an opportunity to see.
He went to high school and college.
Yes, yeah. His dad, who is Howie Long, who works for us here along with us at Fox. And Chris had an opportunity to say, hold on, you know what? Now, we might be fighting for something different, but I see this now, because I saw these Americans come to Charlottesville and were chanting things that I'm not comfortable with, that there's no place for this in our society. In a civilized country, you want us to go back to where we were before?
Yep.
It's not great now, but it was much worse back then. And he says, you know what? For once, man, when I saw that last night, Skip, I was honestly, sincerely touched. Because for a white guy to step outside of his comfort zone and to say, you know what, bruh? We are bruh. Because we talk about as football players, and I'm very fortunate, and I said this before, to play 14 years. And you hear the term, I'm rallying for my brother. Be it something seriously happened to him or something happened to a family member. Maybe there was death in the family. Maybe there was something tragic. But what will athletes say? I'm rallying for my brother. Chris Long put his arms around Malcolm Jenkins as Malcolm Jenkins raised his fist and says, I'm rallying for my brother. If you remember in 9/11, Skip, that they postponed it right after that Sunday. But the following week, a lot of players came out there waving the American flag. All the teams linked arm in arm.
Yep.
Because that was America. Some foreign entity had attacked us. But see what's happening here. Cancer is a disease that attacks its own body. This is America on an American. This is police brutality. The killing of armed black men and women at the hands of the police. The police are there to protect and serve. So this is truly a cancer. This is American on American. And Chris Long says, man, hey, what you guys are fighting for, after what I saw, bro, I'm with you. I want to fight. I want to be a part of this. And I'm so glad that Chris Long could do this. But if you would have polled me and asked who would be the first guy, he'd probably been on the short list. He'd probably been number one. He'd have probably been number one because if you follow, I follow him on Twitter, and he does not hesitate to engage when people step out of line or say something that he doesn't agree with.
Yep.
He has no problem. He is not just an athlete. And when they say stick to football or stick to sports, no. Not that young man.
Okay.
His mom and dad did a great job of raising him, and he's a quality young man. And I'm glad that he put his arm around Malcolm Jenkins and said, bruh, I'm with you.
Again, of the Patriots who went to the White House, it was 34 went and 34 did not. And he was the first one, as you point out, up front. Nope, I'm not going. And the 34 who went were split 50-50 black-white.
Correct.
But he was a white guy, and he's never made a secret, I'm a white guy, I'm not going to go.
Right.
And in this case, what he said, what we just had the privilege of, again, hearing him say, was powerful.
Yes.
It was insightful. It was passionate. He spoke with real, convincing conviction. But unfortunately, he's not Drew Brees. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady. And that would be the next big step. If one of those quarterbacks, Eli, Big Ben, some quarterback would step up and speak out just like that. I'm not as concerned about the deed as I am about the word. I need the words.
Right.
That's why, what he did was well thought out. It took a lot of forethought because he made it clear, I'm never going to kneel for the anthem. So he had to think through, how can I do this? How can I show my support? I'll just put my arm around him.
Right.
He can raise his fist, but I'm going to put my arm around him. That's beautiful, man.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's a powerful image, but he really backed it up with what he said.
Correct.
And then I only wished when I saw it last night, Chris Long was the second overall pick in the draft and has had a good career, not a great career. Wound up with New England. He'd win a ring last year, but now he's at Philly, and they didn't give him a whole lot of money, $1.5 million guaranteed.
Right.
Kirk Cousins making $44 million over 2 years. It's not like he got a boatload of money.
No.
You could argue he's kind of nearing the end of his career. But I thought about his father, the great Howie Long, and I thought about, it's too bad this wasn't the middle of the 80s, maybe. Because Howie Long, for our younger viewers who don't remember him as a football player, he was something. Yeah. He's one of your teammates in the Hall of Fame.
He was a hell-raiser, Skip. I played against him for 4 years when he was with the Raiders, and a true story. We played them in '93, the last game of the season, Skip, and I hit him up. We was for the division. If we won, they were gonna be the wild card. They'd have to come to Denver. They won, we were gonna have to go back to them to Oakland. So we played them. I hit them up for $120, 2 tubs. Went back to.
How do you remember?
Skip, hold on. Let me tell the story about Howard.
Wait, DJ, do we have a track?
No, we got it. And then I went back out for the wild card game, hit him up for another 13 for $156 on the tub. 13 catches.
How did we get here?
I'm just trying to tell you about his dad.
Okay.
And so we're walking off the field after those back-to-back weeks where I cooked him.
Yeah.
He tells me, hey, you're a heck of a ball player.
Wow.
But you're not nearly as good as your brother. And I just bust out. I just started, and he told me that, and we're walking off the
like
field.
the punchline? Like there's a dot.
Yeah, and I'm like, bro, I just cooked y'all back-to-back weeks, and you talking about my brother? But
well, it's true. I mean,
yeah, it was true, but I just thought that was funny. Skip, and this, if I had to guess, if something like this were to happen, I could see his father, because his father was a heck of a player, and one of his best friends, I think, was Greg Townsend, and Greg was another heck of a ball player that played opposite of Howie. But Skip, for him to do that, and sure, it would be nice if Tom Brady or some of these other guys, but I'll take Chris Long. I will take somebody, and I don't want it for just for show, because see, this guy is not for show.
It was not for show.
He did it, and sincerely down in his heart, he's willing to say,
even though it literally hit home to him.
Yes,
it was his home.
Yes,
but
yes.
Still,
yes,
it was powerful because he made no bones about. A couple of times he said, as a white athlete,
yes.
he wanted it clear.
Right.
I'm going to throw what weight I have behind my and I liked what he said about, I'll never kneel, but I will support my peers fighting for equality. My peers.
Yes.
Okay? Well,
that's it.
Beautiful.
And that's all we were asking. And it's going to take that, because I believe, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more today, Skip, is that a lot of people thought Colin Kaepernick was going to be a fad. It was going to be like in the pet rock or the chia pet. But here we are a year later, and Colin Kaepernick is very much in our lexicon. he's very much still talked about. And eventually, there are going to be enough of those white players, those white athletes, and enough of white people are going to get on board that it's going to change policy. It's going to change how the police and law enforcement interact with people of color and minorities in this country. And that's all Colin Kaepernick ever hoped for. Now, you can say he wanted social Facebook likes and mentions and Twitter followers.
Okay.
But I believe it was bigger than that. Skip, sometimes you don't know when you have this epiphany or you have this awakening and you say, you know what? I have a bigger purpose. I have a higher calling than to throw touchdowns or help get a team to the Super Bowl.
I agree.
So whatever moment that was for Colin Kaepernick, it happened. I'm glad that it happened. And I'm glad that he's bringing attention to a serious issue. And I do believe it will have, and Colin Kaepernick will be, history will look favorably upon Colin Kaepernick, not for what he did on the football field, but for the changes that he helped bring about in America.
Totally agree. I told you yesterday, sitting right here, I feel like he's already gone down in history, Colin Kaepernick.
Yes.
I'm not saying he's Dr. King,
No.
but he had impact.
Yes.
And it's going to be very sad if he sacrificed his career for that impact, but he's having it. And I don't know whether it was for likes or not. I'm just saying he had impact.
Right.
I don't even know how intentional the impact was. I think it started as a little thing
Right.
and it became a huge thing because he opened a lot of eyes and ears, I believe, in the white community.
Yes.
I'm just saying this, I have a small sample size on this, but to racial injustice and inequality.
Right.
He did.
Right.
He made everybody think about it, talk about it, disagree with it, or agree with it. We talk about Colin Kaepernick every
the
day.
reg.
Like, don't we talk?
Yeah.
Since we opened on September, we're almost a year on this show.
Yeah.
September 6th. We talked about Colin Kaepernick on September 6th, and rarely has a day passed that we haven't talked about him. He's going down in history to me as someone who forced change
Yes.
through protest,
Yes.
which you always talk about is what this country was built on.
Yes. And
As
it's got
uncomfortable as it's making everybody.
protest is meant to be uncomfortable and it's meant to come with consequences. Because if you're not willing to suffer the consequences for the uncomfortableness and the attention that you try to gain, why are you doing it? Dr. King, you don't think Dr. King knew that he was putting his life at risk? You don't think those men and women that that marched with Dr. King, the freedom fighter, because everybody couldn't do that, Skip. A lot of people wanted to march, but they said, Dr. King, I can't march with you because if somebody spit on me, if somebody pours syrup on me, if somebody does something to me, I'm going to have to lash out, and it's going to cause irreparable harm to your movement.
Yep.
So a lot of people might have protested in their own personal way.
Yep.
This isn't for everybody. But for Skip, or for him to take that, and like you said, it might be. But you know what I'm starting to see, Skip? I jump on my, and I'm heavily involved in social media. I see, and then people like, I saw a guy last night with a Kaepernick jersey in Jacksonville. They see Blake Bortles, they see Henney, they see Ryan Mallett. They like Colin Kaepernick better than them. I might not like what he did, but he's better than those guys, and they got jobs.
Well, we know that it's not about him being better now. We're way past that. It took a lot of